So hi, I'm Alice. This is my email, and if you want to write to me, don't hesitate. And I'm also on the codebar Slack. So if you have any question during this event, use the chat. But after the event, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Slack. So I'm a former software engineer. I was software engineer for 6 years. Then I was a Makers coach. So Makers is a bootcamp in London that you might or might not know. And I've been there for 4 years. And now I code for fun, basically. Now I'm doing like leadership coaching and work coaching, which does not involve code, but I really enjoy coding. Yeah, that's what I do for fun, basically. So tonight I thought I would help you through creating your first game in script. So the goal is to create a game in JavaScript, learn through observation. So there will be a mix tonight of I will model and I will show you how I do things so you can learn from my process. And then you will experiment and build your own functions and build your own features and build your own game. So there's a bit of a mix of like, I model something, you experiment with something. We're going to experiment with Canvas and animation. I want to say animation, but the word is behind the Zoom window on my screen. So I think this is what that slide says. So we're gonna basically, potentially experiment with something you haven't seen before in JavaScript. And then the biggest goal of them all is to have fun, because I think you learn, like people learn best when they have fun and when they're, trying new things and there's something you really want to do and it's hard and there's a bug and you look for it and then you find it and then that's when you learn, when you have those things. So hopefully we have tons of bugs tonight and hopefully we learn lots through fixing those bugs together. Now, just before we start, I wanted to see in the chat, can you give me in the chat like on 1 to 5, 1 being I've never done any JavaScript before, 5 is I actually work in JavaScript. I do JavaScript every day. Kind of where do you feel you are? Maybe 2 is like you've tried it a little bit, but you don't really know. 4, you've done quite a bit, but you're not professional yet. So something like this, just so I get a sense of like where everyone is. All right, cool. Cool. So I would say a lot of you have looked at JavaScript before, but most of you are not self-identifying as professionals in any way. All right, cool. So I'm trying to, in this workshop, I'm trying to have a little bit for everyone. So even if you haven't done much JavaScript before, you can kind of reuse my code and use that to experiment. And if you're proficient, then you can go further. All right, so okay, let's think about what a game is. So here on my screen, I put some like 3 kind of elements when I think of a game. So when I think of a game, and I'm talking video game here, but I guess you could say that's true of any game. Anyway, so when I think of a game, I think there's controls. There's a way for you to interact with the game. So if you were using like a PS4, maybe you have a controller, but if you're on your computer, maybe using the mouse or the keyboard. Then there's a display. There's a way for you to see what is happening in the game. And then there's some rules, like what's the goal of the game? What do you need to do there? How do you accumulate points? So those are the 3 things that we're trying to, these are the 3 things that our game will have tonight. I'm not promising it's going to be a very elaborate game, but it will have controls, it will display, and there will be a goal to the game. And then down there, these are the 3 main kind of things we'll look at, tools we'll look at to make that happen. So for controls, we're going to look at event listeners, which is basically the JavaScript way to say, hey, when the user does this, run this code. We're going to look at Canvas, which is a portion of JavaScript that deals with drawing images on the screen. And the third one, we're going to think about collisions. Collision is not like the first two are like proper JavaScript thing. The third one, it's more, we're going to think about how objects interact on a 2D environment, because one of the big thing in games, if you look at most 2D games, is you interact with things by running into them, right, or jumping on them. So that's an important kind of part of what we'll do. All right. Where is my mouse? Okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna get out of my slides a little bit, and I'm actually gonna start doing this. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna model the first steps. I'll get you to a point where that is a little bit stable, and then I'll leave you, and then I'll give you a link so you can copy where I left the code at, and you can experiment with it for a period of time. Then we'll gather back together. We'll talk a little bit about what happened, and then I'll model a little bit more. And then maybe together, we'll think about how to do some further features. So while I model coding, I'd love it if you can, stop me, interrupt if there's anything that is unclear, anything you don't understand, any question you have. And you can use the chat, but depending on where I am on my screen, I may not see the chat. So if someone has written something in the chat and I have not addressed it, feel free to unmute yourself and say, hey, there's something in the chat. Please reply to this question. So let's do this. This is for me. I'm gonna copy my own link here. So because we're doing JavaScript, I'm gonna work basically in my browser. So here I'm using Chrome, but you could do this in any browser, because any browser runs JavaScript. And I'm gonna use Glitch. And the reason I use Glitch is just, it's an easy platform for you to write code. And it's like you write code there, it hosts the code, and you can share links to the project so that people can start from where you were in the project. So it's a really kind of easy way to work on code and then share code. Let's do a new project. Now, if you want to follow along at this point, you can. You can also catch up when I give you a link to remix my project. So either way is fine. But don't worry if you're missing a step. I'm sharing, you will have access to my code throughout, so you can always look at what I'm doing. So here I'm creating a new project, and I'm using.
I think Alice, link. We can only see your slides at the moment, so we meant to see something else.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. There's always a line to be like, if I interrupt this person, am I wrong to interrupt?
No, no, you are right to interrupt. Okay, cool. So what was I saying? I'm using Chrome. I'm using this platform called Glitch, glitch.com. And I clicked new project, import from GitHub. And here I'm pasting the name of this GitHub repository. And I'm going to copy this in the chat too. And this is a I called it minimal HTML starter. You'll see in a second there once Glitch has finished importing it. This is a basic web project, I would say. It has an index page, which is everything that you can see on the page. So this is some HTML. I think there's a preview here. Let me move this and preview in a new window. And then I'm gonna do something like move this, something like this. Okay, so this is the code. This is the result, and this is the code. There's an HTML page, and you can see here, this is the content of the page, and this is what we see here. inside the HTML, we import a JavaScript file called script.js. Right now, this script file only has one line, which is a console log. And that's something we can see in here if we open the console. This line here comes from this file here. So that tells me the JavaScript is loading correctly. There is a style.css. This is what gives the styles here. This is how I chose my beautiful background color. And there's a README that details a little bit what's in the project. And then there's just an icon, which is this icon here. And this is empty. This is Glitch created this. I didn't. All right, so this is where we start, and this is where any like very basic HTML project starts. And actually, when I start coding, the first thing I do is I create a to-do list. So this is what I'm going to do now. All right, so what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we'll want to do is probably create a screen or a canvas for our game. This is basically creating a display for our game. Then we'll probably want to be able to draw a shape. So we can draw a player eventually. So draw a shape on the canvas. And then make the shape move when we press a key. So I said on my slide before, there's like the input. How does the user or the player interact with my game? Here I'm choosing a keyboard, but the method we'll use, you could use also a mouse. And in the same way, make the shape move, and then we'll create winning screen, because eventually we want people to be able to win the game. So that's the third part. And then we'll put it all together where we'll create a rule that's basically we'll create a winning condition. I'm going to say a winning condition. And so when this winning condition is met, we'll show the win screen. Create a winning condition and show the win screen. So I believe if we have all of this, it kind of is within the definition of a game. I mean, I don't know what you think. If you disagree, let me know. But very basic game. I have a starting state, I can interact, there's a winning condition, and when that happens, there's a win screen. So let's do this. And let's start here. Now, I'm showing you this as I've repeated this, I've done this before, right? But I also want to give you some keys for how to do it yourself. And so when I start, and you'll see what I do, when I start doing something, I always make sure that I have the documentation at hand, because I can't expect myself to remember everything. And if you're exploring something new, you can't expect yourself to remember everything either. So if I know I wanted to use Canvas, I would definitely make sure I have some good resource somewhere in my browser, not too far, that I can refer to. And I'm going to add this to my README. And this way, when you fork the project later, you have access to that resource. All right. So let's do this. Let's see what they say is the basic usage. So a canvas is basically a way to use JavaScript to create images in the browser, right? So here, this is the MDN tutorial. MDN is my favorite, learning website for JavaScript. And I'm not going to go through the tutorial, but I'm always kind of looking at some examples to make sure that I'm doing something correct. So the first thing to do is to add a canvas element to my HTML, and I'm going to do that here. Let me keep this under my eyes. So it needs a width and a height. I'm going to do 400, 400. By the way, is the font size good enough? I mean, I have a small screen, so usually it is, but okay, cool. So yeah, Jody, I saw your comment. You don't need glitch at all. I mean, you can do this on your you can do this in a lot of different ways. The reason I'm using glitch is more to share the project after than really because you need it to do this. And in fact, I'll share this now so you can take a look at the code directly as I'm writing it. But please don't write inside. I think the link I shared, you can actually change my code. Please don't do that as I'm coding. Right, so created a canvas. I'm going to refresh the page here. I don't see anything, but in fact, if I look here, and in fact, briefly you saw it, right? If I look here on, yeah, if I look here in the elements, I did a right click and inspect. The canvas is here, it's just that it's transparent at the moment. So I need to make it a different color so I can easily see this. I'm going to use my CSS here and add a background color to my canvas. All right, and refreshing. And the bug starts now. All right, so what is happening here? By the way, if you see a mistake that I made, let me know. Okay, so it's not happy with my property here. Black, not black. Yeah, maybe. Nice, amazing. Thanks, Michael. All right, so I now have a black canvas. All right. And I think that this is my first thing done. All right, draw a shape. So here in the basic tutorial, I think at some point they drew a rectangle. A simple example. They drew two squares. Oh, this is not the simplest example I've seen. I've definitely seen a simpler example. Drawing shapes. Yeah, I don't know. Let's honestly, not the basic example. I think the basic example is in the Canvas API page. Yeah, that's a good basic example. I like to have really good, very simple examples, because that's the more complex examples are, the less likely you are to know everything that is happening in there. And when I learn, I like to know everything that is happening. So the first thing to do in order to draw a shape is gonna first from the JavaScript reference the HTML element. So something like this. Now let me check that my HTML element is called canvas. Yeah, all right. So here I'm creating a const. a constant that is going to go get that canvas element from my HTML. And this is getting the context. This is just what you need to do in order to draw in 2D. And then this is how you draw a shape. So let's see if I just save this here and I refresh, I have a shape. All right, let's change this a little bit. I'm going to make this yellow. And this is yellow. And I'm going to play with this a little bit just so I know what these mean. In fact, I'm gonna make 2 rectangles, and that will help us kind of understand what is happening here. All right, let's see what happens here. Okay, so we have a yellow rectangle, 0, 100, 250, 100, and then we have a red rectangle, 50, 100, 50, 80. So this here, the first part here is the position on the screen. 0, 100 means that the yellow square, it's 0 from the left of the canvas and 100 from the top, 100 pixels. And then this is the width and this is the height. So I'm going to keep that somewhere left, top, width, height. And I like to keep this along with me all the time because I always forget in what order do things go. All right, so now I've drawn 2 shapes and I know how to draw a very basic shape, the rectangle. I'm laughing at the chat, former students in the chat. Hi, everyone. So this is not what I'm looking at. Read me. All right, so draw a shape, that's done. Make the shape move when we press a key. Okay, so this is starting to get interesting, right? Here, here we've drawn some shapes, but now what we want to do is make things move. So I said earlier in my slides that for the controls, we're going to use event listeners. And this is what we're going to do here. Now, event listeners, I don't know of a page that is like really great at documenting event listeners. Fortunately, I've done enough event listeners in my life to know them. I'm still going to use this one as a reference for the docs, but if someone has a better one to propose, honestly, I'm all ears. I'm listening. Sorry. Right. So let's see. What I want to do, so what an event listener is it's listening to a user interaction. And then when the user interaction happens, it runs a bit of code. So here, the event interaction that I want to listen to is a keyboard event, is like when someone presses a key. And do they say here, keyboard? Yeah, they don't even key down. Oh yeah, they have an example. Oh, cool. They have an example of something that does something with a key. All right, so what I want to do is I'm gonna listen. So the first part here is what you're listening, like which zone are you watching? Because it's a key, when you press a key, you're not really pressing a key on a specific page of on a specific part of the web page, you're just pressing a key in general. So when you listen to key events, you have to listen on what we call the window, which is just the general web page. And I'm gonna say, listen to when a key is pressed. So when the key goes down, because you can listen to when the key goes down, you can listen to when the key stays pressed, or you can listen to when the key is released. But I'm listening to the key downs, and when the key is down, I'm gonna do something with that event. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna console log it. Because the best way to know what you're doing is to have a lot of logs in my experience. So I'm gonna make sure the focus is on my page here, and I'm gonna press the space key. And I can see here that the page received that event, and this is what it received. A lot of, like a big object keyboard event with a lot of properties. But one of them, which I'm interested in, is this code. All right. Sorry, I see questions in the chat. What URL is the page? What is the URL to the page where you are seeing the shapes and color change? Yeah, like the way I got this page here is normally from the link I sent above, you can see this, and then you can open preview either here, but when it's here, it's like just in the middle for me. I don't like that. You can also have it in a new window, and that's what I'm doing here. Right, so now I press a key and events happen. So I pressed a few different things here. And what I see is that the code here, the code is interesting. Like a lot of those properties are not really interesting to me, but here I pressed the letter U and the code is saying key U. And when I pressed space, the code was space. So I'm gonna, instead of logging the whole event, I'm gonna log the code, and that's gonna help me kind of understand how keys are. So here I just pressed space, the left arrow, K, 9, P, and you can do this yourself if you have this page open and you open the console. You can do that yourself. So what am I doing? I want to move a shape when I press a key. So I'm going to say for now that when I press space, the red shape is going to move to the right. That's very random, but that's what I'm going to do. So when I press space, move the red shape to the right. So I know that pressing space gives me an event code of space. So if the event code is equal to space, then move the shape. Now, here I have to wonder, okay, what does that mean to move the shape? Well, one thing it could be is that I'm gonna draw the shape, the red shape again, but just shift it to the right, right? So what I could say is when I press space, I'm gonna draw this shape again, and the left offset here, or here, will be moved to the right. So for example, I could say that when I press space, now it's going to 60. All right, let's try this. I'm refreshing, and now I'm pressing space. All right, something moved, right? You saw it move? Okay, tell me what's happening. Why, like, what's happening? What do we want different? Because now, this is maybe, I'm gonna show you again. All right, yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna press space. Yeah. The red expanded slightly to the right. You're creating a new square each time. We want the old box to disappear. Yeah, exactly. So what is happening here is, yeah, I drew a new square, but the old square is still there. So I need to do something where every time I move a shape, I'm removing the old one. So I need to change a little bit the way that I'm drawing shapes here and just get a bit more organized. All right, so let's get more organized. First of all, let's remove that yellow square. Right now, we'll just focus on the red. I know I say square, it's a rectangle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I see that here I'm calling code that is quite similar twice. Anytime I'm calling similar code, I like to create a function. So I'm going to do just that function, draw red. Well, yeah, why not? Draw red square. And you know what? I'm going to make it a square, so I'm not saying something wrong again. And so the first thing I'm going to do is turning this into a function. I'm going to be calling this function here, and then calling this function here again. Oh yeah, cool. Sorry, there's a question of like what's happening here in terms of syntax. Here, from here to here, this is a function. I could also say const listener equal this. This is a function, and sometimes another way to write this is to write function listener event is this. So you might be more familiar with this. Listener. But like that was me basically writing the function inline within the add event listener. And here this is exactly the same code, except that I put the function outside. So I mean, I'm happy to write it that way. Okay, so now what did I just do? I created a function, draw red square. I call it once, and then I call it again once I press space. I'm gonna refresh my page. It's a square now. I press space. Nothing seems to happen, but that's just because I'm drawing the same square over and over. So now I don't just need to draw it. I need to move it to the right. So I need to somehow keep the position of the square so I can change the position and then draw it again. So let's do that. How should I do that? Let red square left 50. No, top 100. So I've decided that I'm gonna keep the position of the red square. Maybe this should be called red square position inside an object. And then when I draw the red square, what I'll do is I'll refer to that variable and I'll draw it where it is. This way, when I press space, I can change the position. So for example, I could change it by 10. So I could say, well, whenever I press space, I'm adding 10 to the position of the red square left, and then I'm drawing again. So I'm gonna refresh this and I'm gonna press space, and now I'm moving. We have the same problem as before, but my code is a lot more organized and it's now easier to do this. Because now the thing that we need to do is, as we said, we need to like remove the old shape, right? So before we draw, we need to somehow clear the canvas. And I could check on here, but nope. Well, I could check if I don't click on random links. Nope, it's not on this page. Of course. Yes. There's a function in the canvas that clears a specified rectangular area. So this is what I'm going to use to refresh or clear the canvas between move, like every time I want to draw a new shape. So I'm going to use this, and what I want to clear. So, okay, I could clear the old shape, but I think it's just easier to clear the whole canvas. And this way, if I have a lot of shapes around, I can clear everything and then draw everything again. So just a more organized way. So I can clear the whole canvas. And the way to clear the whole canvas is basically from 0, 0 to the width of the canvas and the height of the canvas. Here, our width and height are 400, 400. I'm going to create constants for this because magic number is not great. Width, height equals 400, 400. Did it like that? It didn't like that, did it? Ah, well. And I'm going to make it a lot more visible that these are constants. And height. All right. I'm clearing this. I'm drawing the red square. This is a function of the context, like this one and this one. And refreshing the page. This is what I didn't realize. Okay, let's see. Nope. Ah, this is great. I didn't realize that by sharing the link, like this would be. So this is the unplanned version. What should I do this? I could do this on my terminal. That would be a lot easier because it would be on localhost, but I would have to then copy the code. Here, let me see. Yeah, okay. All right. Change of plans. No, I don't need this. And this is not gonna help me. Sorry, this is if you have ideas, let me know. I'm improvising right now. This is not, it's not temporary. It's because everyone is using. Basically, I'm gonna, yeah, I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start from my, okay, I'm gonna clone this. And we're on plan B. Codebar workshop. All right. And now I'm gonna copy everything that I've done. Nope. I'm gonna copy everything that I've done here from this script in here. So I'm starting from the same point as last time, and I just need to make sure I have the files in the same state. And my index. I've just added this line, I think. Yeah. Okay, this is fun. What am I doing? I'm sorry about this. I didn't realize that this would happen. I'm going to serve this on my localhost. So I'm going to open this on my browser instead of going to this URL. I'm going to go to this URL. Yeah, that's not the same project. This is where we maybe get to. So I need to find the other one that is serving here. Okay. And we're back. Okay. All right. Okay. So, and yes, to the question, are we creating our own? I'm putting some bases here, and then each of you is like starting from that base and adding all the features that you want. We're almost to the end of the base. We have a square that moves. It's moving when we press space. And the last thing we want to do, I mean, the two last things we want to do are, this is the other thing I didn't copy. Where's my code? So we've made the shape move. We need to create a winning screen, which will be us writing on the screen, you win, maybe? Which MDN thankfully tell us this is how you do. So I'm gonna say draw win screen is a function that does writes you win on the screen. So let's see what happens when I do this. Yeah, I think it's writing in black. But uncaught syntax error, line 25. Function. So I'm gonna make sure my winning screen works. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll say, when the red square reaches the end of the screen, this is gonna be my winning condition. So I'm gonna say, I press space, that makes the square move. And then if the square left position is equal to 400, then I'm going to draw the windscreen. And is actually, I'm going to say, is more or equal to 400. All right. So now I have a square. It's going to the right. And when it goes to the right, I won. All right. So this is all the elements of a basic game. I have input. I can read some input from the key. I have moving things. I'm drawing on my screen, and I have a winning screen. I've created a basic game. Now it's your turn. So what we'll do now, I want to hear so first of all, any question you have at this point, and then what feature you feel like you may want to add in this game. What are the next feature you want to work on? I'm gonna make sure that this is online on the link, because I think you still have access to the link. Can someone correct me? You still have access to the link, you just can't see the page. Is that correct? I can't see the chat. Yes, that's correct. All right. All right. So I'm going to make sure that the JavaScript is up to date. And I want to hear it. All right. Adding an obstacle. Okay. So Shakira, you want to add an obstacle. What are you thinking about in terms of adding an obstacle? Do you have some idea of like what that could mean? Or if you don't want to unmute and talk about it. Yeah, changing the color of the box, right? So that's something that you could do. Adding a score box. Yeah, so we could add a score box. What would you want the score to change though? Like what changes the score? So score box. Changing colors. All right, so Shakira says, I was thinking there would be another square and you have to go around it to win. So maybe obstacle means you cannot go through certain parts of the screen. Move up and down, left and right. Yeah, exactly. So having more movement. Obstacles to dodge. Okay, so is that obstacles to dodge? Is that because obstacles are moving, or are obstacles like still like staying put, but you just have to go around them? Because I'm behind moving obstacles, more advanced for sure. If hitting an obstacle, it creates another obstacle. Okay. But does that mean that the obstacle goes away, or you still have to like go around it? And then maybe you end up being blocked because there's obstacles everywhere. You create another obstacle. Change into a circle on the move. Okay, okay. So I'm gonna say create circles instead of squares. And lose, yeah. And maybe there's a lose screen. Maybe it's not just about winning. It's also about not losing. All right, so all of these are definitely possible. Some will be easier than others, but I want to see you trying some of these things. All right, so the way to do this, if you have the link, the easiest way to do this, I'm gonna find. So when you're on here, what you can do is you can click remix somewhere, which for me is hidden behind all of you here, but there's a remix button hidden here. If you can click on it, then you can create your own project, and basically it's going to copy all of the code, but then you can change the code and have your own project in that way. So what I wanted to do at this point is I wanted to put you into like groups of 3 or 4, maybe groups of 4. Let me see how many people we have right now. 67. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Groups of 4, and then in the group of 4, you're gonna decide what you want to do as a feature, and then maybe one of you can share their screen, and you're gonna work on it together. Or if you decide you all want different features, you can work at the same time, but like support each other on your own blockers. What I'll do is I'll go around the rooms to have a chat with, like, to see where you are, and we'll do that for about 20 minutes. At the end of the 20 minutes, we'll come back, and I want to see like different things that you've done. So I want to see lots of creativity there. Before we do that, any questions that you have? Are you able to remix the code? Do you have access to it? Or do you have any question on what's on the code I wrote up to here?
Welcome back. Yeah. Sorry to like force you out of all of your rooms, but I've given you quite a bit of time, and I have to say I've gone around and I've seen like a few really cool things. So I wanted to see maybe from. Yeah, I wanted to see like 5 different things, because I've seen at least 5 that are worthy of showing. So anyone can go first that feels like going. And if you don't volunteer, then I'll just pick on you because I know who you are. So who wants to show what they've been working on, what feature they have?
I will volunteer if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
See my horrible effort.
You can share your screen. I made it so that everyone can share their screen. So
yeah, thank you. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing a screen with a code.
Yeah,
with visual code.
we are. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, we started a bit late, so we didn't get quite as far as we hoped. We went for the obstacle approach. Okay. We talked about a few different ideas, but went for the obstacle. So we started to work on the obstacle. So we created an obstacle. We more fully defined these positions to give width and height as well.
Okay.
Created an obstacle position.
Okay.
We have an obstacle rendering. And so I know, because I'm on a games course at the moment about I know about sort of collision detection with sort of boxes and things. So we're starting to write that, except I managed to forget it's done, and so we're in the middle of debugging it in the 1 dimension. So I think this is now working.
So yeah, I mean, you bring up an interesting point here. Can you show the results? Because here I only see your code, and I'm like, I want to see the box.
Yeah.
And I know you have your browser here.
Okay, so I am pressing space.
Yeah.
On the wrong.
Yeah, but you're on the console. So yeah.
There we go. I am still pressing space, believe me.
Oh.
So it does work.
Interesting. Okay, so is it so? And when go back to your screen, because I want to like talk a little bit about that. Sorry, no, go back to the rectangle.
Oh, is it still showing?
It is still.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Right. So what happens here, right? There's like an obstacle that is yellow, and then there's this rectangle that is red. And what Judy's been talking about the collision is, in order to make it an obstacle, you have to somehow in your code check that the position of red is not clashing with the position of yellow. But the thing is, the position of red is just the position of the top left corner of red, right? And the position of yellow is just the position of the top left corner of yellow. So you can't just check that, you know, the corners are the same place. You have to check that, like you have to take into account the width of red, so that the position plus the width is maybe touching the yellow. And so what I like to do when I think about collision is I always draw a diagram, right? I draw a diagram where I'm like putting one square over the other, and I'm writing down, okay, so top, the border of red needs to be like the right border of red needs to be to the left of the left border of yellow. Like I write down all those rules and then I turn them into code. I think that's the easiest way to think about it, rather than try to remember a mathematic formula. But that's really cool. Your red square is stopping, so obstacle is working.
Yes, and so in the event listener, so I started out by just putting the draw obstacle here, you know, naively assuming and forgetting that we have the clear rect in place. So as soon as I moved, it would disappear.
Yeah, so invisible obstacle. Best
yeah,
obstacle.
Yeah, so I added it back in. What I did here, though, this is where the collision detection is, and I'm doing it before I clear the rectangle, so that if you detect, and so what I do is I kind of check ahead, essentially, and say, well, if the new position of the square is going to be overlapping, then don't do anything, just quit out of this listener. And so effectively it doesn't, you wouldn't get any like rendering glitches then if it's sort of flashing or flickering or anything.
But I mean, there's this, but also you wouldn't move, because I guess what you're doing on line 71 is that you're moving. So what you want to do is like check and then not move. That's the important part, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but what I've done is rather than change red square position, I've written it into a new position.
Yeah, so you're looking,
which I'm not actually using. I've just noticed that.
Yeah, you're saying, okay, what would that move do? If that move was getting me to collide, then bail out.
Yeah, so is it maybe that it is actually overlapping at this point and I've gone slightly over?
I mean, you can easily console log the positions, but I don't think so, because you're only changing the position line 71. So I don't think you've changed the position there.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to try this because I had the wrong variable in my collider. So, oh, I see it. That creates a gap. Okay. So somehow I was doing it right first time. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. I want to see someone else's project.
By all means.
By now you've thought about if you wanted to volunteer, I'm sure. Okay.
Hey, I'm happy to, if we're stuck.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Just pray I haven't broken it in the meantime.
Cool. So what are you doing? We can see your screen.
Cool. So we looked at amending the way that the red box can move. So we originally drew an obstacle box, which is the blue one. And then I've just refactored this quickly, but we've got one for moving arrow right, up and down. And then we've also got like win and lose conditions. So you can move the arrow up or down. If you go sort of out of bounds, top or left, then you top or bottom and you lose. If you go over to the right like you did, then you win.
Okay.
But we haven't indicated anything to do with actually hitting the obstacle.
So right now, what happens when you get close to the obstacle?
Absolutely nothing.
Can you show?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, what I wanted to see is if you were going in front of the obstacle or behind the obstacle. Because that's a choice, right? Do you want to, if you're gonna let things overlap, in what order do you want to overlap, and how do you control that? Do you know why you're going you're like kind of going behind the obstacle?
I assumed it was probably based on just the positioning of how they were drawn.
Yeah, exactly. And not so much how they're drawn on line 29, 30, because that's the initial state, right? But with every frame, you redraw them, and you first draw the red square, and then you draw the obstacle square.
Okay.
Cool. Cool. Thank you so much. And I like your code. It's like quite clean, like with the switch and things. So that's pretty cool.
Can thank makers for that.
All right. Who else wants to show something? All right. No, I thought there was a raised hand, but it's not a raised hand. Come on. No. All
it's
right.
agony, but yeah, go for it.
Go for it. Yeah. Thank you.
It's agonizing. I don't know why I can't get it to just, yeah. So we've taken the lazy approach of copy pasting our functionality over and over again, and then realizing we probably should have modified them first before copy pasting. Similar to the previous person, we've got a up, down, left, right functionality. So we can go up by pressing up, down by pressing down, left by pressing left, and right by pressing right. We've got the win condition where we pass over the right-hand side of the screen. As for collision, we've got some contacts working. So that one, but then for some stupid reason, it's still doing it there. But yeah, oh, and there as well. So there's something not quite right there, and there it doesn't work there.
Interesting. Oh, interesting.
It's a very long-winded approach that I've taken to the logic, and now I'm literally, like you just said, listing out all of the situations, and it occurred to me in my head, hang on a minute. So it's always the case that you have this bottom corner overlapping somewhere, or this top left corner overlapping like here or here. But do you know what I mean? You've got 4 corners and then of the red square, and then 4 corners of the orange. So does that mean you've got like 16 conditions? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one way to write it, right? You could definitely be like, okay, oh, well, I mean, not 16. You could check, you could have 4 conditions. You could be like, okay, I'm going to calculate the position of the top left corner, and I'm going to check, is this within the yellow square? And within the yellow square, is it between the top and the bottom? And is the right and the left? And then you can be like, okay, now for the top right corner. Okay, now for the bottom left corner. Now for the bottom right corner, right? Yeah. You could be like making those 4 conditions. But what I would encourage you to do is do this thing with comments. So before you start writing your condition, I would be writing in comments line, like, okay, check top left corner is within the yellow. And then next line comment, check, top right, etc. And then under each of these lines, you can be like, okay, what does that mean in terms of code?
Yeah.
And you could even have variable that store the top left corner, the bottom left corner, etc. Because then it can be easier to think about what this is. But I think, I mean, one thing you're missing, because you're like thinking about fixed coordinates too. You're not referencing.
Exactly. We weren't referencing the orange, so that's why. Yeah.
So you probably need to like write on paper, okay, what are the coordinates of the orange points?
Yeah.
If you have that on paper, much easier. Always have a paper and a pen next to you.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So anyone else wants to show their project? I've seen some interesting things that we haven't seen before. I've seen a square that turns into a circle. I've seen like something that moves.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah.
Do you want to show what you wrote for the circle square thing?
Yes. Let me figure out how to do that. Share my screen again. That would be this one. Yeah, can you see it? And should I turn? I guess I will turn light mode on this one because I don't know how many of you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So yes, yeah, I'm gonna show the functionality first, and then I will show the code. But we made a few changes, so we can go one pressing space to the right, and when we press D, we can change the shape of our application, of our player or character. And it also goes to the left now when we move. So now we have a bit of direction.
Oh, so is it that the square only moves right and the circle only moves left?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. All right. So let's look at the change, the shape change code.
Yeah. Yes. So what we did is in the code to have a new, we also renamed the red square position to just position. Because now we have a square and a circle using the same variable. And we created a new one called shape. So this is a current shape. And depending on that value, we will use a circle or not. And then we have two functions. This one is the same that you had. And we did something similar for drawing circles. We went to MDN, looked at the documentation, and figure out we can use all this to create an arc, and then use some mathematics to create a circle.
Yeah, I always draw a square first because the circle is a bit more complex. But if you find the right article in the end, I mean, I typically say don't copy paste if you don't know what you're doing, but copy paste if it's a complex thing like this and you just want to move to the next thing.
Yeah, actually, let's see if I can find it fast. I think the example was actually drawing a smiley or something. And
yeah,
there's
examples you can find that row square, that row circle. All right, so let's look at what is the place that is changing square to circle.
Yeah, so we change a bit of the function for the listener. So now we have a new event called key_d, and that will be triggering the change of the shape. So yeah, in short is if we are currently a square, we change the shape to a circle. Otherwise, we change it back to a square.
Cool.
And this is some logs. We had to move on the space code. We only record the position change. And we do the same logic. So if square, then we go to the right using the plus. Otherwise, we go to the left using the minus. So going to the opposite direction. And then the logic for displaying the screen, we moved it outside of the both ifs. So now the logic is here. So clear the rectangle. If it's a square, draw the square. Otherwise, draw the circle.
All right. And then the win condition at the end.
Sorry?
And then that's still the win condition.
Yeah. We kept the win condition. So only the square can win at the moment.
Right, exactly. Because the circle can never go that way.
We can go back. But now we can go back.
So maybe the challenge is you started people on the circle and then they have to figure out what to do.
Yeah, that can be it.
All right, cool. That's really cool. I like how I like how you cleaned up the code a little bit so that you can think about noticing that drawing doesn't need to be in each of the if conditions. All right, I want to see one last project because I've seen something that moves and I think moving is quite fun. And I believe it was in room 13. Was it Michael or Ikram? Are you like, no, I really don't want to do this? If you really don't want to do
yeah,
this,
I can share it. Yeah.
right, great.
Yeah.
Both Ikram wants to talk over it because he did the whole movement.
Oh no, so I don't know that's what people.
So yeah, we can move it up and down. So we changed the keys. And the obstacle moves up and down as well. It also speeds up, which was a bug we were trying to fix. But no collisions yet.
So it looks scary, but actually you can't lose this game.
Not yet, no.
All right. Do you are you able to explain how moving works?
Yeah, that's Ikram.
Yeah, we used something on line 47. You can see where it says request animation frame, and if I'm not mistaken, when I read it, I think it was something like it uses the browser's like sort of animation frame. It syncs with that. So we thought we'll use that, and then we wrap that around a function. Early on, setting the y and the y speed, and then just kind of did the calculations from there. So yeah, you can see it on line 8 and 9, and the magic happens when the function animate. So there, it first on line 33 it clears sort of the canvas, and then on line 34 it speeds up. And line, I think when it hits the bottom, so initially what it did was the green rectangle that you see, it moves up and down by itself. So, and on line 41, that's where kind of, if it hits the bottom, then it goes back up. So it's kind of like a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we put in the functions, we call the functions on 44 and 45. And yeah, on line 47, that's where you see the magic happens with it like moving up and down. But that's about it really.
Yeah, cool. Where do you call the animate function or the request animation frame? Yeah.
Line 95, yeah.
Why? This is why it accelerates, I think.
I don't know. I just thought
if you put the line 95 outside of this, then like I think probably it's a different. Yeah. If you
put it outside.
Put it outside. Yeah. Here. Yeah.
That's strange. It should be going up. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
That's off the speed.
Yeah, that's
Because otherwise, what you were doing is that every time you press a key, it's sending the animation again, but the animation is already on a loop. So you're kind of like looping over loop over loop. Your computer were probably dying.
Yeah, I managed to figure out a way of like creating about 4 of them on the code. But yeah, we didn't have time to do it. I think it's on the green obstacle. If we put in an argument of like something like X, and then yeah, like I managed to figure it out and then change that 500 to an X. And then on line 45, if you just duplicated sort of the green obstacles, because what that 500 represents is where it's sitting, where the green square, that rectangle is sitting. So there, all you got to do is duplicate the draw a green obstacle, and it creates about like 4 or 5 of them. So initially what the game was we moved the red square, a bit like Pac-Man, really. So it's just, that's what the idea was. But yeah, we couldn't really end it.
Yeah, we ran out of time.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It's quite time consuming. Cool. Thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen. If I find it. Let me see. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. So this is where this is where we left things, right? And you added, a lot of you added some code to change the direction here, or like to go in different directions. But I want to go to that last thing. There's like two things that I think are interesting. One is I mean, everything that you showed is interesting. I really like it. But there was also one that changed color that was really beautiful. But anyway, one of the thing was like an obstacle, right? Because here what we do with the win position is that we just check the end here. But if you wanted to check that you were within a given box, then your win condition would have to be check for, so what we call collision. Collision is that the term. But typically what I said earlier is when I check for collision, I'm always thinking, quite deeply about that. And I'm thinking, okay, top left corner of my box, and actually needs to be within the zone, and then top right corner of my, I'm going to call it shape. My shape needs to be within the zone, etc. Right? Bottom left. I'm not a fast typer, as you can see, so I copy paste all the time. Bottom left, and then bottom right corner. And so, for example, if my zone was something like 500, and then a width of 100, 100. 500 is not good because this canvas is only 400. I'm going to say this. And in fact, I'm going to draw a square this way we can see it. Draw zone. So I'm reusing my red square, but I'm gonna use those coordinates. I'm gonna say that it's yellow. And of course, I'm gonna make sure I call this here. Actually, I want to call it before the player. So the player comes in front of it. And then I want to see it here. So if I was refreshing here, I can see my box. And I'm going to put it on the trajectory because otherwise, given that I don't have the arrows, it's never going to work. Nope, that was not the right one to change. Right. So what I want to think about is like how those corners are within, and basically this one is like if my top left corner, so my top left corner is my position. I think I called it red square position. Dot left, dot top is between, so within the zone would be the top is lower than the top of the zone, so it's lower from the top, is lower than basically the zone top, which is the zone top is $100, and and the left, no, and the top is less than the bottom. So that's 100 plus the height, 100. So it's like, and here I've only checked like that the top is within the zone, and then you want to check that the left is between the right and the left. So like this is the kind of long winded way of doing all those things. There are formulas, and honestly, when I'm coding a game, I might check, hey, formula for collision between two zones, and that's just making me go a little bit faster. And I have some. No, I'm not gonna go there. Like I have some. I figured it out once, and I've put that function in a file, and then I'm using it every time. So now I can be like collision zone square, and then I'm reusing this, right? And that's what you want to do when you build a game, is that you want to spend some time checking that thing, but then once you have a function, you can be like, okay, is there a collision between those two things? And so every time it goes faster as you're doing it. The other thing is this animation loop thing, which is the idea of the animation loop is that you can, instead of drawing the square every time you click space, you could say that you're going to draw a square every 15 milliseconds, wherever it is at the moment. And then when you click on the button, it's going to change the position of the square, but you kind of separate those two things. So there's one thing that changes the position of the square and something else that draws the square every 15 milliseconds. And that makes it really, really practical, because you can then make things move. Because right now, if you only have an event listener, the only way that things can move is when you press a key. But if you have something that draws all the time, you could say that things move all the time, even if you don't press a key. So for the animation loop, what you would do is everything that is about drawing. So this is about drawing. This is also about drawing, right? Because this is about drawing the win. And in fact, if you're using the animation loop, what you do is everything that is about drawing is in draw function. Everything that is about the input is in your listener. And then you're going to say that every time the browser wants to show an image on the screen, it's going to call draw. And at the end of draw, I'm going to tell the browser to do that again every time, like the next time. So here I'm telling the browser, the next time you want to draw on the screen, use the draw function. And here at the end of draw, I'm telling it, okay, now the next time you want to draw something on the screen, change that. Now, if I refresh this, there's no change really in the way the game works, although it is a little bit smoother, which you can't necessarily see, but it moves a little bit smoother. But it's not really neat in terms of organization, because here I'm just changing something about the square in the listener, and here I'm drawing. And what that means is that if I wanted to, for example, like if I wanted something to happen all the time, not just when I'm listening, I could do it here. So if I wanted something to move, for example, I'm going to draw. No, I'm going to say that I'm going to start a timer. Timer equal date.now. And I'm going to say that how do I write? This is how I write some text. I'm going to say that I'm going to have a timer, and here I'm always going to show the current time. So date.now minus timer. So here I'm telling this thing, okay, in lime color, write the current time, the difference between now and when I started this game on the screen. And so yeah, if I refresh here, nothing happens. That's great. Oh yeah, because I'm then clearing the canvas just after I write on it. Right. And now I have this timer at the top, and this is moving without me having to press space. So I have my, like, how do I show things on the screen? Very separate from how do I do my inputs. All right, so this is all I have for today. Hopefully you've seen, so I'm sorry that it was a bit chaotic with like the page not refreshing and things. Hopefully you've seen kind of like how I think about a game and what are the main elements, inputs, drawing, win condition, and then how to start thinking about those win conditions. And hopefully you're gonna build your own games and send them to me. I'll look for links in codebar workspace, but if you draw one of your game, I'll like send me a message, because I'll geek with you about it. And I guess I'll open it to questions. I think that's what I'll do.
Thank you so much. Yeah. If anyone, goes on to develop their game further, please do put them into the codebar Slack. I know Jodie's put something in the festival channel already, but yeah, please do share them. I know we have slightly overrun a little bit, but does anyone have any questions for Alice whilst we're still here?
I mean, it can be anything, honestly. Or you can ask me to, do something. I don't know.
Alice, I got one question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Can I share my screen? Just.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay. I just got one question. I've got sort of, I'm not sure if you could see my screen or not.
Yeah. You have a lot of things moving.
Yeah. I just wanted to know, how would I, if I were to do it, how would I move these at a different rate, so they're all going at the same rate? So if I had that as, if they were going up and down at different times.
Yeah, great question. So what you would do is, right now you're treating all of them as just one thing, which is you're using draw green rectangle, basically. And you're not really changing. Yeah, I guess So what I would do is I would keep an array of green rectangles, and each of them stores its own position and its own speed.
Okay.
And then in the animate, I would update, like go through the array using a for loop, and for each of them, update their position and their speed potentially.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I can.
So you need, and this is how you do if you have a number of obstacles, or if you want to draw like 10 boxes on the screen, you keep them in an array, and then whenever you're displaying, you go through the array of things to to draw on the screen, and for each of them you draw it.
Right. Okay, and wrap that around sort of like a for loop, would you say?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Alice, I've just done something like that, if you want to have a look.
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned about, can you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned about putting in, like having multiple objects appear, and you for it to get more difficult. So I've just done this little thing where, so the colors change on our square, but then as you go through I think it's every 10 clicks, basically, I've put in an obstacle, and then it stays on the screen. But it's done with, so I've created an array there, like you mentioned, and then so every time, where are we? Every time the key count is like 10, every sort of 10 or so, it then does this draw obstacle. So it just gets a random position within the bounds of the box, minus the size of the obstacle that I've put there. And then it pushes it into the array. Well, it pushes that into the array, the left and the top. And then, where are we? So then I've said if there are obstacles in the array, and then I've done a for each.
Yeah, and then drawing them. Yeah. So
And
I
then
would just comment one thing here. Yeah. So I would just comment one thing here is like, so your function here, I mean, first of all, well done for like doing this array and then pushing things in there and figuring that out. I think on your line 14 here, you're doing it's called draw red square, but of course now it's basically draw. I mean, your square is not even red, so it's like it's draw, right? Or display or something like this. I mean, you don't have to change it now, but just recognizing that.
Yeah.
But on your line, I want to say this is 46. You call this draw obstacle, but I would challenge this and say this is create obstacle, and you don't even need to draw the obstacle at this point. You just need to create it and push it in the array because the other function is doing the drawing.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? And this is better in terms of like separating the purpose of things. You have one thing that is whose work is to draw everything on the screen, and then in the other places you're just updating the positions, updating the array, updating the color.
Okay, so if I comment that out, it should work.
Yeah, I believe it should work. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
because you have one place where you draw, and then it's just one place here where you create obstacles.
I was thinking I had to draw it and then kind of save it somewhere to be drawn again later on, but
but in fact you never need to, like, the fact that it exists and the fact that it's drawn are kind of like two different things. Cool, really cool. Now you just need to have collision, and then you have like a kind of a snake game-ish.
I love the way you say just collision.
Just do it. Just do it. Cool. Thank you so much. Anyone else who wants to say something, or just, or just like show your screen, or I'm gonna give you space because I've seen. All right, go for it.
Just quickly, I'm like 0 level at coding, and just where do you think? I mean, I'm doing a course on Python at the moment. It's still very scary. I still have no idea what I'm doing. But what is it? I mean, I know there's no easy way, but what is like some sort of way to make it easier to understand this thing, because it just looks like magic to me.
Yeah,
I'm a designer, by the way, so I can design, but I can't code.
That's fine. Thanks for your question. I'm used to answering that question, basically. There's no way that it's going to be easy to magically understand code. There's no way. But you can make it easy on yourself by not expecting that you understand right away, right? So like it's I mean, all of learning is like this, but I've taught hundreds of developers before, and I've taught them from scratch, and what happens is every day you look at it, it looks really hard and complicated, but after 2 months of looking at it, it looks a lot easier. But there's no way to be there when you're not there yet. So I think a lot of the time, the one thing that can get in the way is you're stressing out because it feels difficult, you're being anxious a little bit, or you're like, oh, I will never be able to do this. And that gets in your way. But that's your mindset and attitude towards it. And so that's something that you can control, actually. So there's no way that it's going to be easy. But I think the best you can do is like experiment, like try things. And if it feels really overwhelming, try something easier. But it's just by trying things, reading things, comparing things, debugging things that it's going to come. And like the only thing I would want to tell you is like, it's going to come. If you do it every day, it's going to come. Like there's no, the really hard thing is to keep doing it even though you don't really see the progress, because the progress is minute every day. It's like your hair is growing, but you never see it grow, right? It's like, it's not, but you know, after a month, if you look at it, actually it has grown a little bit. So your knowledge of code will grow in the same way, but it is very frustrating if you're looking at how fast it's growing. Like there's no way to, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion, at least. Now, having said that, I think every time you have a resource that makes you feel like you read the solution, like you have no idea what to do, and then you read the solution and it feels like magic, that's probably a resource that is aimed at slightly higher than where you are at in terms of your learning. And so you want to find a resource where you're like, just on the place where you're like, you can't really do it, it's a bit frustrating, but at least you understand the solution, or you're like, with some effort and spending time, you actually can make progress. Then that's, you know, it's pitched at the right place. Yeah, also like only compare yourself to, what did we say? Are you a better developer than you were yesterday? Like don't think of like, oh, I want to be, look at all those people who are really good. Like I want to be like, I'm so bad compared to them. You're like, no, are you better than you were yesterday? That's the only thing that counts. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you.
No worries. Good luck. It's a rewarding. It's hard, but it's rewarding. And also reach out on Slack if you want some. Yeah, it's not hard. It's new. Well, it's Dana's poster. Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, I mean, I don't want to like.
Actually, I had one question.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I have time. Like, I booked in my calendar that I can be here up to 9, but I don't want to hijack everyone's evening. So do leave if you want to leave, and thank you so much for coming. But I have some time left. Yeah.
I'm hoping to be quick anyway. But I just wondered if you had any recommendations for JavaScript. Kind of game engines, because I know there are like libraries and things that can help you to develop kind of bigger games. I was just wondering if you had any recommendations for JavaScript.
Yeah, it's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have anything off the top of my head. I can look into it and come back to you on this. I don't know if I would look into it better than you would, but I'm definitely happy to do that. But yeah, I don't have anything off the top. I really like to code from scratch, which is great when you code for fun, but not necessarily the most productive way to code at work. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything there. I know they exist. I know in the past I've recommended some libraries to people who have done games, but that's just because I did some research and then recommended them. So yeah, I can do that research again, but that's
yeah, no, that's fine. Like if you code from scratch, you code it from scratch. I mean, I'm very similar, which is why I was asking actually, because I'm just waste so much time doing that.
Yeah, but yeah, I would search for JavaScript 2D libraries, and there's definitely libraries that will make like collisions and physics, all of this a lot easier, where you can just be like taking a collision method off the shelf and taking a acceleration method off the shelf and all of this, and that would make it easier for sure.